My wedding dress had bloodstains. I found out my fiancé slept with my maid of honor the night before. He claimed he was too drunk to remember, but gave her a $3,500 Ritz night and a bracelet that read, "Forever starts tonight." Then told me it was a sign. We weren't meant to be, called me dramatic for crying. So I took the mic at the rehearsal dinner and said, when I noticed the tiny rust-colored stains on the hem of my wedding dress, I thought it was from the florist's roses. Maybe someone's finger got pricked while arranging bouquets. But then I saw it. The same pattern smeared faintly across the inside of the zipper, like a thumbprint trying to hide. It wasn't until later that night, when I found the broken bracelet in the hotel bathroom, that everything snapped into place. A thin gold chain with an engraving on the inside, "Forever starts tonight." That phrase wasn't mine, and the initials next to it weren't mine either. I remember staring at it while my fiancé, Jason, was sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face, pretending to look remorseful. "I was drunk, babe. I didn't even remember it happened until she told me this morning," he said. His voice was calm, like he was talking about a parking ticket. "The night before our wedding?" I asked. My throat was burning, my hands shaking. He sighed. "Maybe this is a sign, that we're not meant to be." He said it like he was doing me a favor. I didn't even have words. My brain kept replaying his voice messages from the night before, him saying he was staying in his suite with the groomsmen. One last chill night before we're married. Meanwhile, my maid of honor, my best friend since high school, was apparently in that same hotel, in that same bed, wearing my future. I found out later that the bracelet wasn't the only gift. He'd spent $3,500, our honeymoon money, on a night at the Ritz for her. A celebration, he called it. When I confronted him, he shrugged and said, "You should be grateful I told you before the ceremony. Most guys wouldn't." That's when something inside me turned off. It was like I stopped being the sobbing bride-to-be and became someone else, someone colder, steadier. Because if he wanted a sign, I was about to give him one. At the rehearsal dinner that night, I wore the same dress I was supposed to wear for the ceremony rehearsal, the one with the faint bloodstains near the hem. Nobody noticed. Everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, talking about love and beginnings. Jason sat next to me, acting like he hadn't just destroyed my life 12 hours earlier. My maid of honor, Haley, was across from me, smiling like nothing had happened. I stood up, holding the mic. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "Before we eat," I said, "I just want to thank everyone for being here. It means a lot to us. And I have something to share about what forever really means." Jason looked up from his plate, confused. Haley froze mid-sip of her wine. I smiled. "You know that saying, 'Forever starts tonight'?" Every head turned. Haley's hand went to her wrist, almost instinctively. That was the moment I knew I had their full attention. Because forever was about to end before it even started. Jason and I met in Austin 3 years ago at a friend's birthday party. He was that type of guy who made you feel like the only person in the room, warm voice, quiet confidence, eyes that didn't flinch away when you spoke. I'd just gotten out of a messy breakup and wasn't looking for anything, but he was relentless in a gentle kind of way. He brought me coffee to work, remembered tiny things I said in passing, like how I missed my grandma's cinnamon rolls. A week later, he showed up with a homemade batch. He didn't just charm me. He won over everyone, my parents, my coworkers, even my dog. People used to tell me, "He's the one, don't mess this up." And I believed it. Haley and I had been best friends since we were 16. We went through everything together, heartbreaks, bad jobs, cross-country moves. When I got engaged, she cried harder than I did. She told me she'd never seen me so happy. She was supposed to be my rock through all the wedding chaos. Looking back, there were signs, little things I ignored. Like the way Jason's eyes lingered too long on her when we'd all hang out. The inside jokes I wasn't part of. The time I came out of the bathroom at brunch and found her laughing, hand on his arm, while he leaned in close. She brushed it off when I teased her later, said, "Please, he's your fiancé." Gross, but still something about their chemistry felt, practiced. Then came the wedding prep. Jason suddenly got busy with work, missed cake tastings, fittings, meetings with the planner. Haley filled in for him, always helping. She even offered to pick up his tux when the store called about a fitting issue. I remember thanking her, hugging her, saying, "You're the sister I never had." That was 3 days before she slept with him. The night before the wedding, I stayed in my suite with my bridesmaids. We had champagne, face masks, dumb movies. Jason texted me around 10:30 p.m. saying, "Love you, babe. Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle tomorrow." I screenshotted it because it made me smile. At 2 o'clock a.m., apparently he texted Haley. "You up?" she was. The next morning, Haley was pale, quiet. She said she hadn't slept. I thought it was nerves. I didn't notice the faint red smudge on her wrist where the bracelet had been too tight. And when she helped zip up my dress, her hands trembled. She said it was emotion. I thought she was just being sentimental. I even hugged her and said, "You're my forever friend." God, now I can't even think about those words without feeling sick. So when I stood at that rehearsal dinner, holding the mic, all those memories came flooding back. The laughter, the trust, the stupid blind love. Jason reached for my hand like nothing was wrong, like he still had the right to touch me. I pulled away and said into the mic, calm as stone, "This story's about two people who thought they could get away with it." Everyone went silent. And for the first time, Jason looked nervous. The clinking of glasses stopped. Even the background music cut out mid-song, like the universe itself wanted to hear what I had to say. I looked around at that long table, my family, his parents, our friends, everyone dressed up and smiling just moments before. Haley's face was already draining of color. Jason gave me that warning look men use when they realize the person they underestimated has finally stopped playing nice. I said, "You all know how they say love is about honesty, right?" My voice was calm, steady. Well, Jason here taught me that honesty can come a little too late. He chuckled nervously and muttered, "Babe, let's not do this here." But I ignored him. "No, no, let's absolutely do this here." People shifted in their seats. My mom's eyes were wide, like she was silently begging me not to make a scene. Haley tried to laugh, this weird fake little sound. "Oh my God, are you pranking him right now?" she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I reached into my purse and pulled out the broken bracelet. The room actually gasped. I didn't even know that was something people did in real life until that moment. "Recognize this?" I asked. Haley's hand flew to her wrist again. Jason looked like he was about to get up, but I kept going. "It says, 'Forever starts tonight.'" "Jason, you want to tell everyone when exactly tonight was supposed to start," he stammered. "I told you what happened. It was a mistake. I was drunk, it didn't mean." I raised my voice just enough to slice through his excuses. "He says he was too drunk to remember. But somehow, he remembered enough to buy her a $3,500 bracelet and book a suite at the Ritz with our honeymoon money." A few guests actually gasped again. Jason's mom covered her mouth. His dad muttered something under his breath and pushed his chair back. Haley stood up, shaking. "You don't understand. It just happened. It didn't mean anything." I turned to her. "It meant my life." For a moment, the only sound was someone's fork hitting a plate. Jason got up and grabbed the mic from my hand. "Enough," he said. His voice was low, controlled. "You're humiliating yourself. You should be grateful I told you before the ceremony. Most people wouldn't have." That's when I laughed, not the kind of laugh that comes from humor, but from disbelief so deep it borders on hysteria. "Grateful," I said. "You destroy my trust, sleep with my best friend, spend our honeymoon fund on her, and I'm supposed to thank you." He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic." I swear, the whole room heard the shift in me. Something inside went ice cold. I took the mic back and said, "You know what's dramatic, Jason? Standing in front of everyone pretending to be the man I thought I was marrying. You're lucky I found out before tomorrow. Because if I hadn't—" I stopped mid-sentence. Let the silence sit heavy. Then I smiled, the kind of smile that makes people nervous. "You'd be married to a woman who knows exactly how to ruin your perfect image." And that's when I decided I wouldn't just expose him. I'd make sure he remembered me every time he tried to rebuild the life he'd just shattered. Because he thought this was the end of my story. He had no idea it was only the start. The rehearsal dinner ended in chaos. Jason stormed out first, his face bright red, muttering something about me being crazy and vindictive. Haley followed him, crying and shaking, trying to defend herself to people who were already whispering behind napkins. My mom tried to comfort me, but I just sat there, numb, staring at the half-eaten cake topper that said "Forever starts tonight." Yeah, the irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the hotel balcony with a bottle of champagne I'd planned to pop on my wedding morning. The air smelled like rain and flowers, but everything felt rot. Around 3 o'clock a.m., I finally got up and started deleting the wedding photos from my phone, the engagement shoot, the dress fittings, the Pinterest board full of stupid fairytale ideas. That's when I saw it. A photo I didn't take. It was a mirror selfie, clearly from Jason's phone, but it had been automatically saved to our shared album. He was shirtless, grinning. Haley was behind him, wearing my bridal robe. The one that said Mrs. Martin in silver cursive. The timestamp was from 1:58 a.m., just hours before our ceremony. I don't remember breathing for a while after that. When I finally did, it wasn't crying that came out, it was laughter. Low, broken laughter. The kind that sounds more like an exhale of pain than amusement. Because that image, that was it. Proof. And it gave me something I hadn't had since this all started. Control. I started thinking about how everyone had taken Jason's side when I called off the wedding. His mother texted me that morning saying, "Please don't ruin his career over a mistake." His best man said, "You should forgive him, he's not perfect." Meanwhile, I was the one being whispered about as the emotional bride who couldn't handle a little drama. That was the moment something flipped. I wasn't just going to destroy their relationship. I was going to destroy the story they were telling about me. So I dug deeper. I still had access to the joint credit card we'd used for wedding expenses. I scrolled through the transactions from the past month and found something interesting. 2 additional charges at the Ritz, both under Haley's name, both in different rooms. Curiosity turned to horror when I matched the dates to Jason's business trips. He hadn't just cheated once. He'd been sleeping with her for months. And it got worse. I checked Haley's Instagram, which she'd made private after the rehearsal dinner, but I had screenshots from before. A picture from a girls' night 2 months ago, her wearing a necklace I'd never seen before. The caption said, "When you're finally seen for who you are." The necklace was engraved. I zoomed in. It said JM, Jason's initials. I remember whispering out loud to no one, "You were in love with her." That realization hit harder than the cheating itself. He hadn't just made a mistake. He'd chosen her, over and over, while lying to my face every night. And the worst part? The wedding wasn't even supposed to happen. Because the next morning, when I went to cancel the vendors and tell the venue we wouldn't need the ballroom, the coordinator said something that stopped me cold. She said, "Oh, that's odd. Jason already called last week to postpone the wedding, said it was for personal reasons. He was going to leave me at the altar. He hadn't told me because he wanted me to be the one humiliated." That's when I realized my revenge wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about survival. He wanted a show? Fine. I'd give him one he'd never forget. By sunrise, I had a plan. Not a half-baked, crying on the bathroom floor kind of idea. A real one. Cold, precise, cruel in the exact way he deserved. I wasn't going to smash things or scream at him again. No, that's what he expected. I was going to let him watch his perfect world crumble, one piece at a time, while everyone thought he was the reason it fell apart. First step, evidence. I screenshotted everything, the receipts from the Ritz, the texts he'd sent her, the photo in my robe. I uploaded everything to a private Google Drive folder labeled Wedding Files, and shared it with his family, Haley's fiancé. Yeah, she was engaged too, to a guy named Ryan, and every single bridesmaid. I didn't say a word in the email. No subject, no message, just the link. Within 30 minutes, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Jason's sister called me sobbing, saying she had no idea. Haley's fiancé texted me, "Meet me before you post anything public. Please." Public? Yeah, that was the second part of the plan. Jason was a real estate agent who built his image on being the good guy. He ran ads about trust, honesty, and family values. His face was on billboards. His clients adored him. That was his pride, his spotless, wholesome reputation. I made a new email account under a fake name and sent the same folder to every major client he had, along with screenshots of him bragging to Haley about closing deals using my connections. "You're my lucky charm," he'd texted her. "They love me because of her." By mid-afternoon, one of his clients replied, "This is disgusting. We'll be canceling our contract." He lost 3 deals that week. But the real masterpiece was Haley's downfall. See, she worked for a boutique PR firm that managed social media for influencers. Her image was her currency. I knew that because I'd helped her rewrite her resume last year. So, I sent her boss the same evidence, not with malice in the words, but with the truth presented clean and clear. Thought you might want to know what your employee has been posting from the company account after hours. Haley got suspended that same day. Still, it wasn't enough. Not yet. The next layer required a bit more performance. I reached out to a local photographer, the one we'd originally booked for the wedding, and asked if he could still shoot me, but just me. No dress, no groom, just a session at the venue at sunset. I told him I'd pay double. When I arrived, I wore a simple white slip dress. My makeup was clean, eyes still swollen from crying. The ballroom behind me was empty, all the chairs and flowers still set up from what was supposed to be our ceremony. The photographer asked if I was sure about this. I said, yes, I want to remember the moment I chose myself instead. Those photos turned out haunting, real, raw. You could see the grief and rage all at once. I posted one that night with the caption, "Turns out forever started with the truth." Within hours, it went viral. Thousands of likes, shares, comments. Everyone wanted to know the story behind the photo. Jason texted me around midnight, "You're ruining my life. Take it down." I replied, "Forever starts tonight, right?" That's when I found out something I hadn't expected, the second twist I never saw coming. Because as it turns out, Jason and Haley hadn't just been cheating. They'd been recording me. When Jason texted me that night, I thought it was just more damage control. The man who swore he didn't care suddenly cared a lot about his reputation. But a few hours later, I got a message from an unknown number. No name, just a file attachment and a short line that said, "You should see what they said about you." I hesitated for a long minute before opening it. It was a screen recording of a group chat, Jason, Haley, and one of his groomsmen, Connor. The first message was from Haley. "She's crying again. I can hear her through the wall lol." Then Jason, "Told you she's dramatic. Wait till I show you the footage, she's a full meltdown queen." Footage? My stomach dropped. Then Connor replied with a laughing emoji and said, "Bro, don't post that. You'll get canceled." Jason's response made my hands shake so bad I almost dropped my phone. "Nah, it's just for laughs. Gotta remember how she begged me not to leave." Priceless? I opened the attached clip and my blood went cold. It was me, sitting on the hotel bed, crying, begging him to tell me the truth. My voice breaking, my face raw. It was from the night before the wedding, the night I confronted him after finding the bracelet. He'd filmed me, without my consent. I felt something break in my chest, because that wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. And the fact that Haley was in the chat laughing about it made it even worse. I didn't even realize I was crying again until I tasted salt. That's when I noticed something else. The unknown number that had sent me the recording was Ryan's. Haley's fiancé. He'd found it on Haley's laptop after she'd left it open the night she got suspended. He sent it to me because, in his words, "If you're planning to burn them down, I'll bring the gas." That line hit me harder than any apology ever could. Ryan told me Haley and Jason had been hooking up for at least 7 months. She'd been using Ryan's money to buy Jason gifts, the bracelet, the hotel rooms, even his new watch. And the worst part, they planned to go public after the wedding, claiming that they fell in love unexpectedly and that fate intervened. It wasn't a mistake. It was planned. Haley even wrote a draft for a viral post about it. "When love finds you where it shouldn't, you owe it to yourself to follow it." That was the title. They were going to destroy me publicly and make it look romantic. I remember sitting there in silence, phone in my lap, staring out the window as Austin lights flickered below me. The rage that came over me wasn't fiery this time, it was quiet. Ice cold. Because now I wasn't just getting revenge, I was going to erase them. The next morning, I met Ryan for coffee. We barely spoke. He slid a flash drive across the table and said, "Everything you need." Inside were all the chat logs, photos, videos, proof that they'd been mocking me, planning the narrative, and filming me without consent. That changed everything. Because now it wasn't just personal. It was criminal. And I knew exactly how to use it. When I finally sat across from Haley's fiancé, Ryan, and listened to him lay out everything on that coffee shop table, it felt like the moment someone turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through blind. But even then, I wasn't prepared for how cold and deliberate their plan actually was. I thought it was passion or cowardice or a stupid, selfish mistake. I was wrong. It was calculation, pure marketable calculation. You already know they wanted to go public after the wedding with that sick, dramatic line about love finding you where it shouldn't. They'd practiced the post, the tearful confessions, Haley's vulnerability bait, Jason's remorseful, I made a mistake face. They imagined the virality. The think pieces, the late-night jokes, the sympathy likes, the follower spike. What I didn't know until Ryan slid those files across the table was how detailed the plan had been. Jason wasn't dumb. He was a brand. He sold trust to people who wanted a steady hand to sign their mortgage paperwork. Every billboard, every schmoozy community event, every "I volunteer at the shelter" Instagram post was part of a ledger he kept in his head. He'd decided I was a liability the moment my stubbornness threatened him, not emotionally, but economically. A messy bride equals canceled deals, whispered doubts, clients who don't want drama tied to their realtor. So he engineered drama that painted him as the aggrieved party and me as the overdramatic obstacle. That was the first layer of cruelty. He wanted to be seen as the victim while using my real pain as props. The second layer was worse. Haley wasn't just a lover, she was a collaborator. She'd been building a tiny but aggressive influencer network on the side, a friend group that flipped micro-scandals into brand deals. She had PR contacts who could manufacture narratives, ghostwrite the viral post, package the apology video, and sell you the redemption arc. Together, they'd map out the fallout like a business plan. Lose followers in the short term, then spike to 50,000 new eyes when the real story dropped, monetize via sponsored posts, podcasts, and God help me, a possible memoir about messy love. They had spreadsheets. They literally had a spreadsheet with projected follower growth and income streams labeled post-scandal. When I heard that, something in my chest went cold enough to hurt. They hadn't fallen in love. They'd strategized a product. The scandal, my heartbreak was their market research. My humiliation would be their content. The bracelet, the writs, the recordings, all of it was part of building an archive of authentic moments they could monetize later. The video of me crying, they planned to clip it and use it as a catalyst, to sell the story of how messy it was before they reemerged as the shiny new couple who had the courage to be honest. They expected the internet to forgive them. They'd budgeted for it. And worst of all, my money was just a line item. The $3,500 honeymoon fund didn't disappear because of spontaneous passion. It was an investment. They funneled it into the campaign's launch night, the suite, the gifts, the little staged souvenirs they could later post as we did this before it got real. They treated our savings like a seed round. They'd been siphoning money from our shared accounts and from Haley's fiancé's generosity to finance their little performance. Ryan's documents showed transfers, expense lists, even a note from Haley. Buy now, pay me back later, worth it. The part that chilled me the most wasn't the greed or the lying. It was how surgical it all was. They had rehearsed my reactions in group texts. They had timed posts and kept a file with the vulnerable quotes they thought would get the most shares. They had planned to turn the woman I was, the one who trusted them, into content that would line their pockets. There is a particular kind of rage that isn't loud. It's the quiet, steady realization that someone believed you were nothing more than a stepping stone, that they had already sold the script of your life to someone else. I sat there with Ryan's flash drive between us and felt like I was inventing the sharpest kind of grief. They didn't cheat because they loved each other. They cheated because they were building a brand and I was collateral. And suddenly, revenge wasn't just personal. It was the only way to make sure their product failed. After Ryan handed me that flash drive, the plan stopped being about humiliation and started being about dismantling the thing they built from my life. I wanted them bankrupt of reputation, of leverage, of the ability to turn someone else's pain into money. I wanted them to face something harder than gossip. Consequences that stung in the places they actually cared about, their careers, their bank accounts, and their standing with the people who trusted them. First, I did the obvious. I filed a police report. I walked into the precinct with printed screen recordings, timestamps, receipts, and the photographer's original files showing the robe and the timestamps. The officer who took my statement hadn't seen a case packaged so cleanly in a while, and he promised to look into the illegal recordings. That line, "You were filmed without consent," changed the tone in his eyes. Suddenly, it wasn't a messy breakup. It was a possible felony. That scared them in a way gossip never could. Then I hit them where it hurt: credibility. I took the spreadsheet, the drafts of their staged vulnerability post, the expense lists, and sent it to every single person in Jason's professional network, every reporter who covers local business scandals, and to the PR contact lists that handled Haley's mini-influencer campaigns. I didn't add commentary. I let the documents speak. Within 48 hours, his office calls became radio silence. Contracts paused. Haley's inbox filled with hostile DMs from brands asking for an explanation. Her firm placed her on indefinite leave. The suspension became termination. But I wanted more than job losses. I wanted permanent visibility. So I compiled a timeline: receipts, texts, photos, the makeover of their plan. I wrote it like a short exposé, no melodrama, just facts, and sent it, with the video clip of them laughing about my crying, to a prominent local columnist who had written fluff pieces about lovable local business owners. He called me that evening. He said, "We've been hearing rumblings. This changes things." The piece ran the next week with screenshots and the lawyer's note about consent. The comment sections were brutal. The pundits loved a fall from grace. There were legal outcomes, too. Haley's fiancé pressed charges for fraud against her for using his card without permission. Receipts on the flash drive made his claim ironclad. A client of Jason's filed a civil suit after discovering he'd been misled about conflicts of interest. The police investigation into the recordings moved faster than I expected. Their groomsmen got subpoenaed for the group chat. The whole thing unraveled like a cheap suit. Throughout it all, I kept my dignity. I didn't post the most humiliating videos. I didn't craft a narrative of my pain for clicks. I answered questions with facts. I let other people's reactions do the work. That restraint baffled some, enraged others, and ultimately made the case stronger. People saw someone wronged who didn't beg for attention. She used evidence instead. The last moment of real satisfaction came 2 months later. I was at a small hearing where Jason's main client publicly terminated his services. He tried to argue character. The woman who spoke after him, a homeowner he'd worked with for years, said, "We trusted him to sell our house. We don't trust someone who treats people like props." Jason sat there, hands trembling, and finally looked like the man in the photos I'd deleted, exposed and ordinary. I didn't dance on anyone's grave. I did, however, close a chapter. I stitched my life back together around people who'd earned it, not around those who'd rehearsed it. I reclaimed the money they stole. Court orders, settlements, and contracts reversed covered most of the honeymoon fund and then some. I used part of it to take a long, quiet trip alone. No fanfare, no Instagram, just a train ticket and a cheap room with a view of the ocean where I learned to breathe without waiting for permission. When people ask me now how I got through it, I tell them the truth. I cried until there was nothing left to cry, then I turned my grief into a spreadsheet and a deadline. It wasn't noble. It wasn't pretty. It felt like work and sometimes like war. But it worked. And the last ironic thing, a year later at a neighborhood block party, Jason walked past me with an apologetic nod. I smiled, polite and small, and said, "You know what they say, forever does start tonight. Tonight I finally decided it starts with me." He kept walking. I didn't look back.